everyone, this is Alex Reeby, immigration attorney and partner with Maria Sario. And in this video today, we're going to be talking specifically to lawful permanent residents about whether they can travel outside the United States. And so typically the answer is yes. Lawful permanent residents have the right to leave the United States and return to the United States. They carry their passport, they carry their lawful permanent resident card. But things can get complicated. When can they get complicated? Well, typically two scenarios that I'm going to talk about today. So the first scenario is when the person has a criminal record, and the second scenario is where the person wants to leave for an extended period of time, or maybe they want to travel in and out a lot. Okay, so let's talk about that first. A lawful permanent resident has to reside permanently in the United States, and you can actually abandon your green card. So what that means is the US government can find that even though you're awarded your green card, given your green card, that you've abandoned it, that you no longer want to be a green card holder because you live primarily in a different country. And so the typical rule of thumb is that that shouldn't happen, often doesn't happen, as long as the trip outside of the United States is for less than 6 months. So typically speaking, people always hear this rule that you shouldn't leave the United States for more than 6 months in one given trip. So you could go back home, you could visit there for 4 months, but you should come back within the 6 months. And that is technically true. But the other thing to keep in mind is that whether or not you've abandoned your green card is a totality of the circumstances. So let's say I have a green card and I'm from Canada, and I spend most of the time living in Canada. I go to school in Canada, I have a house in Canada, I have a spouse in Canada, I pay my taxes in Canada, really only come here to visit. But I come back every 4 months for a week. So I'm gone in Canada for 4 months, come back for a week. Gone for 4 months, come back for a week. Gone for 4 months, come back for a few days. You might be okay, but you might have problems when you're coming back in with CBP and they can say, wait a second, seems like you've abandoned your green card because you're mostly living in Canada. And you could say, wait a second, no, I haven't. I've never left for more than 6 months at a given time. But that's not the only rule. It's a totality of the circumstances. Does it seem like you intend to live over there? Do you intend to live over here? Do you have a home here, a property here? Do you have family here? Do you pay taxes here? Those are the types of things that might show that you don't intend to abandon your green card. Now, what happens if you want to leave for a year or up to 2 years because you have an opportunity abroad, or you want to try out a different country and you have a green card? Well, you can ask for a re-entry permit. So a re-entry permit is filed on a form I-131, and that re-entry permit, if you're granted that re-entry permit, then you can leave for up to 2 years on a single trip. And so if you know that you have family you need to take care of in your home country, somebody's ill, they need you to take care of them, it's probably going to take about a year for you to do that, maybe more. You might want to ask for that re-entry permit. Now, what's important is you have to be in the United States when you file the application for the re-entry permit, and you have to be in the United States to do your biometrics, your fingerprints, if USCIS needs your fingerprints. So you can't go abroad, be there for 9 months and say, oh no, I don't want to abandon my green card. Let me ask for a re-entry permit, because you have to be in the United States when you file it. So you might want to come back, file it, do the biometrics, and then you can leave again. Re-entry permits are taking more than a year right now to come. So during that time before you're granted the re-entry permit, you do want to make sure you're traveling back to the United States at least once every 6 months. But once you get that re-entry permit granted, you can leave for up to 2 years, and then you can ask for a renewal if you need a renewal. So that's the re-entry permit. Now, the next thing is naturalization. So some people who have a green card want to eventually become a citizen. And so traveling in and out is important because it might affect eligibility to become a citizen. Now, why? Well, in order to become a citizen, you need to show continuous residence and physical presence. So what that means is you shouldn't have exits for more than 6 months. And if you do, that might be okay if you have a good reason, like COVID happened, I couldn't come back. That's something I hear a lot. But if you have an exit for more than a year, then you cannot get your naturalization. And that's within the time period that's relevant for your naturalization. So that depends on how you're getting it. For naturalization, if you're got your green card through a US citizen spouse, then you can do it after 3 years. Otherwise, it's typically 5 years. So within that 3 or 5 year period, do you have these departures for more than 6 months or more than a year? That might affect your ability to get your citizenship. And then the other thing is physical presence. So you essentially, during that same period of time, we're talking about 5 years, typically for some people 3 years, do you have physical presence? Physical presence means that you have to have lived in the US, or been in the US rather, been physically present for at least 30 months out of the 5 years, or at least 18 months out of the 3 years. And this is before filing. So again, if you're gone a lot, like you don't really only come back for like a month and you're gone for 3 months, come back for a couple weeks, gone for 2 months, then you're probably not going to have that physical presence. And that might be okay. Maybe you want to keep your green card. But if you ever want to naturalize, something to think about, okay, is am I potentially affecting my eligibility to naturalize when I want to because I'm leaving too much, okay? So these are the things that are important when it comes to, can I leave as a green card holder? And then the last thing that I want to talk about is crimes. So if you've committed certain types of crimes, that might also be an issue. So if you have a criminal record and you're worried, then please do consult with an immigration attorney that has a lot of experience with criminal immigration matters. Because you can, every time you're coming in to like a port of entry, Canada, Mexico, or coming into an airport, CBP can look at your criminal record. And if you have a criminal record, they can detain you. You can be detained for many months. You can be placed in removal proceedings. You could potentially have your green card taken away. So it is important. Should you panic if you have a traffic violation? No, probably not. There's like a whole category of crimes called crimes involving moral turpitude. So typically that's like fraud crimes, theft crimes, maybe some types of assault crimes, or like firearm offenses, things like that are maybe more serious. And you might want to check with an immigration attorney, like, am I going to have a problem coming back into the United States with this on my history? That might be another reason why you might want to naturalize potentially if you're eligible to naturalize, so that you don't have to worry about that like old criminal record on your history. But again, if you want to naturalize, you want to make sure that you're not outside the country for too long. So they all go hand in hand. But that's just to say that you can absolutely travel as a lawful permanent resident. You are entitled to do that. But you want to be mindful of these things, like these long periods of travel. And if you have a criminal record, if you have a DUI, it's probably not going to be an issue because that's not a crime involving moral turpitude. But if you have a fraud offense, a theft offense, something more serious, a serious assault, definitely check in with an immigration attorney who like knows the nuances of those two things. Even if you completed probation, it's still on your record. If it was dismissed, like a dismissed charge, you shouldn't worry about that. But lawful permanent residents can be deportable, meaning that the government can deport you. And if they find you because they are looking at your record when you're coming back to the United States, that might be one time that they put you in removal proceedings. So thank you so much for your attention. You can always contact us for a consultation and we can talk more about your specific case. And we'll see you on our next YouTube video.